I have a funny background. I come from a family of American communists. And what's the best way to rebel from a family of communists? Well, in my mind, that was to put on a suit and tie and become a capitalist, and that's what I did. And as I looked at my career choices, I thought, if my grandfather was the biggest communist in America, I'm going to try to become the biggest capitalist in Eastern Europe. I eventually moved to Moscow to set up an investment fund. We started with zero, and it became very successful, and we became the largest foreign investors in Russia. And in the process, I discovered that all the companies that I was investing in were basically having all their profits and money stolen by corrupt managers and oligarchs. And so I started to expose these people and their thefts in an effort to get them to stop their stealing. But in the process, I also angered some of the most important people in Russia. On November 13th, 2005, I was expelled from the country, declared a threat to national security, and that's when my problems really began. 18 months after that, the Russian authorities raided my offices, seized all my corporate documents, and used them to steal $230 million of taxes that we paid to the Russian government. I hired a young lawyer named Sergei Magnitsky to try to stop this ongoing fraud. Sergei exposed the officials, testified against them, and a month after his testimony, some of the same officials he testified against arrested him, put him in pretrial detention, where he was then tortured to get him to withdraw his testimony. He became very, very sick after this mistreatment, was diagnosed with pancreatitis, and then they refused him all medical attention. After 358 days in detention, he went into critical condition. On that night, they then did take him to a prison that had a medical facility, but when he got there, instead of putting him in the emergency room, they chained him to a bed and allowed 8 riot guards with rubber batons to beat him until he died at the age of 37. That was 4 years ago. I learned about this the next day, and it was like a knife going right into my heart. And I spent the last 4 years on a campaign to get justice for Sergei Magnitsky. It culminated recently in the passage of something called the Sergei Magnitsky Act in the US Congress, which imposes visa sanctions and asset freezes on the people who killed him and the people who commit other gross human rights abuses. A very important part of my campaign for justice is that the world knows this story. And for the last 2 years, I've dug deep into my notes to document what's happened. And I've written a book called Red Notice. And this book lifts the lid and shows exactly what's going on in Russia today.